Alright, hello. This is going to be my second introductory video to Glitter. The last one was criticized for being too long. This one is also going to be long. But anyway, let's get into it. So what is the inspiration behind Glitter first? So this is Scratch. So this is if you haven't seen this before, it's a bit weird. But it's a sort of introductory programming language for creating little games and whatnot, and it's designed for children, though apparently some adults still continue using it. And it works by having this language that you drag and drop around pieces and you slot them together, and then you can do rather weird things. Like this, so I can wait 1 second, move 10 steps, and then turn. So I do that, we wait 1 second, and the cat moves and turns a little bit. So it's all very straightforward. So the inspiration behind, so the idea behind this, behind Glitter is, how do you get people to move beyond this into something slightly more professional? I've done like code clubs and stuff like that, and you go from Scratch and you go into Python, and Python in comparison is quite boring and harder to use than Scratch is. So this is where I thought that Glitter would come into it, but Glitter has more uses than that. So give me a second to start it up. Probably should have prepared this. Sometimes it takes a long time to start up from the IDE. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Well, I also didn't set the. I also didn't set it up to appear in the correct position. Hold on, it's doing its slow day. Here we go. And it's in the wrong position. That's okay. I'm not starting this video again. Otherwise, we'll never get it finished. So I'm deliberately doing this on my low resolution monitor so that it's kind of like I'm aiming for the smallest possible laptop. So this is Glitter. It used to actually be laid out a lot like Scratch, but it is no longer like that. It is a more probably laid out like, but like I used to use Unity, so some of the Unity ideas might have come across, but not really. So how do we use Glitter? So Glitter is a desktop application, so there's no web version. There might be one day, but I don't really want to. There will probably be a standalone like compiler thing that someone else can use to make a web version with. Anyway, how does it work? Well, we go to the file menu and we create a new app project. An app project is basically a Scratch project, but I changed the word to app instead of Scratch. And we have, the initial startup screen is very unexciting. That will change one day. Here we have this is basically the layout or the stage from Scratch. In fact, we can go to a stage and we can see some costumes and we can see some scripts. So if we look back at here, we have code, we have costumes, and we have sounds for each object. If you click on this stage, you can edit the code and the backdrops and the sounds. So it's sort of designed that if you have used Scratch, then yeah, the layout and everything is different, but you had to pick it up. The major difference here is that you do not code with drag and drop stuff just yet. That is the one thing that I hope to work on next year. But it won't be a drag and drop editor. It will be a hybrid editor. That's what I'm looking for. But we'll talk about that. So first off, I'm going to get. So you can rig it to use the old Scratch library. I don't know that you can find that cat. There we go. So then when we go to our default layout, we can see we have a cat, and then we can click on it and we can move them around, and there's some information over here, so you can change this. This is draggable stuff, is only for the Scratch export. Like there's no case where you can drag. Well, you can drag, but you can't drag within a running application. So that's kind of a pointless thing. But there are a lot of these things just come from scratch, so you can change the rotation style to left, right, no rotate. Yes, it's missing lots of little like icons and everything. It's not as fancy. And you can choose the start frame. I wonder why that did not show up correctly, but who knows? It works. So every time I do these videos, there's always many bugs and stuff that I find, which is why I'm doing this video now, because I'm going to release version 3, and I'm just checking everything kind of works by going through and doing a demonstration. So we have our little cat in the middle of the screen, and so let's just do what we did beforehand. So how will we do that? There's no flag. You can't drag a flag block across. So on Scratch is when flag clicked. But then we can do the same kind of thing. We go like this. So it's a C-like programming language at the moment. So by that I mean it has curly brackets and it looks a lot like C or Java or JavaScript. That sort of family of C#, that sort of language, family of languages which use curly brackets, and indentation doesn't matter. There will one day, I had planned to have a Python-like language which was indentation sensitive and didn't use curly brackets, which may still happen. That's not like a huge thing to do. It's just I think I really want to do the drag and drop interface. So at the moment it has a terribly basic editor with no colorization, very few little functions you can do, but that's the one thing I'm hoping next year I will get onto. The idea would be is that you type everything in like in text, but you can click on something and it will become something that you could drag around, but you wouldn't be able to drag around in 2 dimensions as such. You'd have to drag them along in 1 dimension as though it's text flowing down the page. But now we can go wait. I think the command is wait time. 1 second. I don't remember all the names. If you click on these little buttons over here that kind of match the colors of Scratch, and you wanted to go control, because that's where wait was, you've got wait time. If you click on wait time, it will come down here and there'll be some instructions, and then there'll be like a little quick thing, and you can click. Well, you used to be able to click on that, but you probably still can. No, there we go. There's a bug. Why can't you actually click on that? Wacky. But anyway, you can copy it, and then you can go over here, and then you can go paste, and then it will copy in the command. And you can do that. So if you forget if you want to find out what most of the commands are, you just come over here and you click on what you want. So there's pen commands, pen block, define a block, call a block, variables, declare, say text, and so on and so on and so on. It does say net, which doesn't produce anything. There are in fact networking code in there that I'm not going to tell anybody what they are, because I'm going to change the framework, and they use a very old part of the code, so they're not reliable. But that having local area networking code is like a thing that it should have. In fact, it used to have. And now we're going to go move. So we're going to move 10, and then I can't remember if we were turning left or right, but we'll turn left 15 degrees or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I could just look at the code. Let's just look at the code. What did I write? Oh, my poor little cat. Move 10, turn right. So we have to do it exactly the same, I guess. Oops, I was supposed to shrink it down. Turn right. So a lot of these commands have alternative names. So this, of course, because it misses out on the important thing of Scratch, is that Scratch, you can change the language, and then you could have the blocks in different languages. It's not going to have different languages, but hopefully, I'll have like small commands that use like a couple of letters. So turn right can be TR as another alternative, because don't speak English. Yeah, you can remember TR. You can. Most people in the world seem to end up learning something about the alphabet, so they can at least learn some letters, and that might be easier. And trying to keep most of the keywords to be short. But anyway, so this is the same kind of code. How do you run it? Well, you can't just click on this and see anything exciting. Like there's no flag on this. So what you have to do, you can go to compile and run. And these are the compile things. So this is where it's different. It's different from right. Okay, it's sorry. I'm just looking. I'm looking at the output for the subtle debug output on the outside, and I'm going, oh, that's an interesting bug. Anyway, so you have to compile it. So the difference is a Scratch. Scratch is a what they call an interpreted language, which means it doesn't have to do anything with the code. It just goes through and reads the instructions one by one and does them. Whereas this kind of also does that, but it also doesn't do that. It does a whole bunch of different things. So it's a lot more complicated. But the thing is, you just have to go Control F9 or click compile, or do any of the. There's a whole multitude of ways of doing it. You can click on the app, and then you can go down here, and there's like some little buttons, or you can use the menu. So I'm just going to go Control F9, and it comes up with a screen. There'll be a bunch of different ones. And there you go. It did what you wanted to do. So you can click on flag, and 1 second, and then they all do their stuff. So there's a few more options. There's this weird thing here, which is generating, and if we click on that, it will go back to the beginning. And then this one is the pause button, and then there's stop. Great, there's my my email. I should have turned my email off. I'm trying to buy a phone that's a feature phone. Anyway, I got rid of the email. So now we're going to go, what we're going to do. So there's a few other things here. One thing is that there's a text output screen. So you can actually write output into the text output screen. This is where the errors come up as you're running it. So if you have like runtime errors, like I think this is what this thing is for. Like if you divide by 0, or you get an out of bounds array and things like this, then they will show up here, and then you can go and track them. And there's a debug stuff which I've never talked about, but there's a few debugging features, and there's some exporters, because you can export to. We click on this little weird button here. You can export to Scratch, and you can export to Scratch 2. So it creates Scratch 2 files. I haven't got around to making a Scratch 3 exporter. And you can create web pages as well. So if you do that, you have to choose a variety in this sort of cramped little box. So there will be like different. There will be just a sole exporter only dialogue at some point, and a sole running this without the stuff on the side. That will be in version 4. So you can choose a folder, you can choose a target folder, or you can choose a target zip file, put everything in there. So you can choose to do a folder, a zip file, or zip and folder. The idea is that with a zip file, and if you use the itch.io template, it will create a very, very simple itch.io. This is basically what you will always use. And then it will create a little web page and the JavaScript to go with it, and it will create a little version of this. You can scale the window, so this will be, if you have it at 1, this is a new feature, so I can't guarantee that it works, but you have like 480 by 360. If you want to have it at a higher resolution when it creates the thing, you can change it here. This is different to scaling the web canvas thing. It's like doing it better. And these are just other performance things that will disappear at some point, because the HTML exporter is going to get a revamp. It's not a huge revamp, but the code's going to get, the way it generates the code is going to change. And I'll talk about that later on. So that's basically here. There's a lot of other things here, but most of the time you just stick with that. You also can, what about these little dark gray bar things? They're like, you can switch things around. So you can, if you right mouse click on these, and you can change it to up and down, which is not as useful as you might like. All right, but you have some ability. So the same thing with these kind of bars, you can rearrange the output. Not a huge, it's not that flexible, but it's better than nothing. So that's the basics. So if I click on the actual app here, then I can give it a name. So my project, me, and we can, exciting new features, you can actually change the output window. So 480 by 360 is the standard Scratch window size. So you could change that to, for example, a widescreen format. And if we go back at the default layout, you can see now the actual output is larger than the background. There is a slight difference when you actually run it. It will expand the background image to fit inside the window within the internal runner. It doesn't do that currently with the HTML output. It just keeps it at that size. Which is, I think, one thing I may or may not fix before I release version 3, but probably won't fix, but I will fix at some point. And of course, you go here, you can see that you can change those things. You can change the target frames per second, so you can make it 60 frames per second, kind of like Turbo Warp. These are kind of features you get from Turbo Warp. I won't go into these little weird things at the moment. If you want, you can choose some presets. So these are just sort of like standard things that I thought might be useful. One of the thing is down here they have these the costume density. So in Scratch, even though something is 480 by 360, like the actual bitmap image, for example, is going to be 960 by 720 because it fits in 2 pixels across and 2 pixels down for every on-screen pixel. So that's what this pixel density thing means. It means you're drawing it in a higher resolution. But that's higher cost, and if you're actually just having it in a small screen, you don't really care. So you can choose. So then when it says low there, it just means it's just going to set those. But you can, of course, do whatever you want. You can make up whatever random numbers you want here. To a degree, that's another thing this has just got to do with Scratch import. So one thing you can do is you can open a project that is a Scratch project. So if you download your SB2 or your SB3 files, you can just load them into here and it will convert it over into a Glitter project. But some things don't always come across properly, and there are a few things where, like, you can write Scratch projects that have like blocks that you then delete the block, but you still have the call to the block in the Scratch project, and when you import it in, it will spurt out lots of errors. Same thing with errors. That's what that's to do with. Anyway, let's go back and talk about the scripts. So a few other things with scripts. This is the stage script. So you can go flag. Other ones you can do is you can go clicked, or it doesn't work on the stage. I think key pressed. I can't actually remember if it's pressed or key pressed. What does it say on key? Key. Okay, it's just key. Yeah. Key A. I think you can say up and down as well. So up for the cursor keys. Key A, print A. All right. So there's that. You can also define messages. So you can go message cat, and then down and you can say on cat, print cat, and then we can go here. I will say a few more things here. Clicked, broadcast cat. So if I click on that, you can see here it will print out over in this corner. Stage says cat, so it tells you what object is printing it, and it says cat. So that's how broadcast. If you want to broadcast and wait, it's broadcast with these little dots after it. So most of Scratch is in there. Like some things you can't. Like there are some commands I forgot were there that no one ever uses. Like there's one that's wait. Where I can't remember on the background changing. Wait, it's like there's a command for the stage. One of the notable things that I'm missing. There are quite a few. Well, not that many, but like you can change the costume. So you would go costume. Actually, I've forgotten the commands. I will actually go. Yeah, if you get stuck when you don't know what the command is, and for some reason I haven't put it in to here, maybe it's a set costume. It's set costume. So you can go set costume. You can go set background as well, I think, or backdrop if it's the stage. Yeah, set backdrop. But there's another one, set backdrop and wait in Scratch. You can't do that here, so because I forgot that it exists. And yeah, one day, if anyone actually cares about that command. Yeah, you may notice there are semicolons at the end of everything. So in standard C-like languages, there's a semicolon at the end of thing. This is to do with the way that parsing algorithms work, and it's just to help the compiler work out which is actually a thing. You don't have to do that, like in Glitter. So I just do it because I've always done it, and I haven't tested it. There might be some weird case where it gets confused and does something different. So you can actually put everything on one line. You can go like print new and a equals c times plus 4. It won't do that because you don't have an a, but we'll just say that's another thing we have to talk about, is we can go int a equals 4, int c equals 2. What did I get? Incomplete parse, syntax error. Okay, if you get a syntax error, you have to click on this and it will tell you, what is that wrong? Broadcast. I didn't expect that. Okay, hold on, that's not right. Is it just 2? What have I done now? That is the actual command. That's how it's supposed to look. I will double check. I must have mucked something up, or maybe it's the word cat. No. How did we get here? How did this happen? Right, interesting. So that's a bug. I will fix that for the actual release version, because that is how you write it. But anyway, if we go back here, talking about the script again, there's a lot to talk about. I got to start speeding things up. You don't have to care about the silly that, and you don't have to care about any of these things at all. So it doesn't insert semicolons, is what I'm saying. It's me being a smart aleck. Some languages, when you go to compile it, they'll go through and they'll insert the semicolons that you didn't put in, like JavaScript will do. And so you get some weird quirks. If you write things like this, it might get confused. So anyway, but the other thing is, so in general, I'm trying to make it so that you type that variables are typed. So this is saying this C is an integer. Yes, I know people nowadays go let C int or something equal 4. That actually may work. Right, we've got to give it a different name. You're like, variable moo cannot be found. Yes. Variable broadcast cat. Wait, does it go after the end of it? No, it does go after. All right, there we go. That's how you do it. you put the 3 dots after the name of the message. So I've forgotten how to code my own language. So going back here, you can do a variety of different things. You can just say let, and then it will work it out. So if I go let d equals 4, and then down here I say d equals cow, it's going to tell me something. What have I done wrong? Right, so the errors come up here and you click on them. So it doesn't like me doing that. Here we go. All right. So down here it tells me in a hidden away error, the type string is invalidated in this context, expecting an int, because d is an int, because D is 4. So var is the, if you're lazy and you don't wanna do typing, just use var. So now I'm confused what let was for. But anyway, I did put it in the documentation, I think. So I have explained it somewhere. Yeah, so you can do typing, but no, var is doing the automatic typing. So what is let doing? Well, maybe you can do auto. No. Oh, is it any? That's right. Yeah. So anything is, so D can be anything you want, and so you can put in a cow, you can put in a 4. It's fine. So that's, I'm not gonna go too much more into the language because we have to move on. So the next thing is we have scripts, we have costumes. So it does not at the moment let you edit vector files. So this is a big thing. This is another big thing that I want to do to make it a complete tool, is to have support for vector. It will let you load them in, and it will keep them there, and it will convert them and do stuff with them, but you won't be able to edit them or do anything with them. But if you have a bitmap file, you can do things in this little, a bit cramped screen here. So you can just click on something and then you can just draw some lines, blah blah blah, and you can change the color. If you click on these things, you can change it to that, or you can just pick that, and then you can draw, and then you can change the stroke size to 5, and then you can draw that, and then you can draw a circle, right? And you can draw a filled circle, and you can draw a filled outline circle that look like that, or you can do an erase circle, and that will erase everything underneath it. So that, and then you've got flood fill, so you can flood fill that with blue. You can go Control Z and undo, or you can click on these weirdly looking buttons, or you can go to the history, and this tells you all the operations you did, and you can jump back to where you wanted to, and then jump forward and jump to the flood fill. So those kind of things. Over here, these are the structured options. So I made a video about how this works, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. So you can start off, this is going to be, if you double click, add a new point. This is the most complicated structured thing. So there's no curved structured things yet. That will come later on. I just have a really, really quirky way that I want to implement that, so I want to put a bit of work into it. And we'll change that to that. And so then we've got, so you can move it around, you can change it, you can click on stamp, and then you can do that, or you can press the space key, and then you can change the color. So we're going to do a green one, and we can make the same shape, and then you can rotate it around and do the same thing. Press space, stamp it again, press space, stamp it again. Don't like it, press delete, goes away. Really don't like it, press escape, and it goes back to it. And that's the new option. So they all kind of work the same. You've also got text. Click on the inspector, and so you can enter text and stuff. There are no colliders, so we're going to go down to sorry, we have to talk about colliders. And this is one big problem, is that you can't edit the colliders on the bitmap on the vector graphics, but we'll turn that into a bitmap. It's not perfect, of course. It's going to drop his feet off. So we can add. So the thing is, in Scratch, it has pixel perfect collision detection, where a sprite can touch another sprite, and it can be touching just by a thing, and you don't have to define any colliders, and you can ask if it's touching a color and all these kind of things. And you cannot do that in Glitter because it's too much work, and it's just really inefficient and dumb, and it doesn't actually make for very enjoyable games or enjoyable things, because the collision detection is too precise and too annoying and frustrating, because oh, you hit his whiskers and that's a collision. It's like that's not a collision. So there will be more complicated colliders, but at the moment you can't add a box. Why have I got rid of that? Why have I not got rid of the add box thing? We'll add a box next. We'll add a box. That will be one of my next features to add. So you can add circles, so that you can have circle colliders, and you can have touch points, which are little points that you can use for it to touch things, they were also going to be if you're touching a color in the background. So they're acceptably complicated enough, not complicated enough to use. Because it's a pain to get, like if I'm translating this to different languages, to have to worry about the whole like I suspect that the translation from the creation of Scratch 3 took time. One of the biggest problems was getting the collisions to work because they're just a pain. And but the point is you can add more than one circle. So we'll add another circle. They always start off huge, and then we'll shrink it down, and then we'll move that circle to there. So then they've got, this is their collision thing, and then you can copy that to other costumes, and so the other costumes will have those collisions. What happens when you click on this? I don't know. Edit colliders. Doesn't let you do it. Okay. But anyway, so the way that the vector stuff will be is that there will be just one editor, but there will be layers. So there is no layer support at the moment. So when you add the layers, you'll have vector layers, and you'll have rasterized vectors. By that I mean, so vectors that you can forever zoom in on, and then vectors that are structured things that you can edit, but they're actually creating a bitmap in an image. So I want to have all three types. So it might seem like I started with the simplest one, but honestly, to tell you the truth, I think the raster graphics stuff is far more work and a pain than the vector stuff will be. So there's a lot of weird little annoying quirks that you have to muck around with. Anyway, so we can click on a few other things. So there's that, and you can, of course, if you want to copy and paste, his head. So and you don't I mean, there's going to be a few usability things that will change over time. So maybe in the next version you have to do it like with the rectangle where you select it. But this one, it starts off with a predefined rectangle and you adjust it, and you can rotate it around a bit. So we're gonna copy that. So we can go Control C. Nothing to paste. Sorry, I accidentally pressed Control V. So this is copy here. This is cut. So oh no, they've got no head, and then I can paste their head back on, which did not line up exactly right. So everything's a work in progress, but we're much better than we used to be. And then you can rotate it around. Also, you have these little bars here on the rectangle thing, and if you click on that, then you can skew it a bit, and then you can continue to rotate it, and then you can click on the point. So this works slightly different to other drawing tools, but I'm hoping that's a little bit more intuitive. But there's still so much work to be done on this. Also, one other thing, there's a pixel art option. So if you want it to be smooth, turn off the pixel art. If you want it to be pixelated, click on the pixel art button. And also there's a frame variable. So if I go frame cat1a, we'll use that. And so now in my scripts, I can go, I'm going to have to try and remember this. I think it's costumes.cat1a switch. So you can refer to it by variable. Does that work? Costumes, no, I might be costume. Or it's probably frames. Right. Yeah, so you can go frames and then you can switch. Oh, it did it. So, beep. Then they go to the mutated one. So there are commands to use everything. So I'm trying to make it as typed and as nice so that you can't make code. So you're moving away from being able to enter code. Sorry, I think I moved too far away from the mic. You're moving away from the ease of entering code to the ease of trying to make sure everything is correct code, because you can make some terribly incorrect code in Scratch. There's this data thing, which is you can add variables in a graphical way, which has decided not to work, which is lovely because it worked before, which I'm not going to go into. If it doesn't work, well, I'll fix that. Is there an error? Why doesn't it work? Who knows? Come back. Huh. Anyway, there are sounds. So if you go here, you have the list of sounds. So you can import a audio file, a WAV file at the moment, only WAV files. So MP3s don't work, but they might get exported out to Scratch, which does support MP3. So it's just WAV files. It will support other file formats later on. But you can also create synthesized sounds. So if I go new synth, there's a new synthesize the sound. And then you have this kind of complicated tool. If I test it, I don't know if that's going to come through on the thing because the way my screen recorder is set up. But basically, you can set the envelope. You can add new points if you double click, and then you can put in a new point. You can click on the right mouse click, and then you can delete it or use some other options. Like you can set it to the maximum value and so on. So this is the audio envelope. This is the frequency adjust envelope. So this is the frequency we're at here. It's at 440 Hertz. You can choose from here like some notes if you want to change things, or you can just randomly select that. So we can go back to, where's the 440? 440. It's A4. We can change the waveform. There's a few other options. I will go through this in another video, so I'm not going to go through what these ones mean. But frequency adjust, so the middle bar is the frequency you set it at, and if you go up this, it's an octave higher, and there's an octave lower down the bottom. At some point, I will add in a feature so that you can go more than one octave in each direction. But as you can see, it makes the sound change. You can add in ring modulation, which is changing the frequency. And again, so this has a bass frequency. If I make it quite low, you might be able to hear it might be a bit obvious that it's doing that. And again, you can change that. So if you do the square wave, sounds like that. Triangle doesn't sound so. And then you can do an advanced one where the influence changes. So it might start off with no. It's hard to sound. It's hard to hear it on that sound effect unless we make it longer. So the ring modulation doesn't come in until later, and of course you can change the pitch adjust, so it can be a bit higher over here, and then it speeds up and so on like that. So you can do quite advanced ring modulation. Pitch modulation, same kind of thing, except this time it is for modulating the frequency. So then it can get kind of, this is the modulating frequency, adjusting the frequency that's modulated. So you can create some weird sound effects, but it's complicated, and you can do some neat things by modulating by some random white noise. And also there is this bias thing, which I have to draw a picture of what it's talking about. But if I variable bias, if I do it like this, you might not be able to hear that it's doing anything, but it is. That's not going to sound the way you think it will. Anyway, that could be used for making like laser effects. And you can add more than one track. So at the moment there's one track, but you can add another one in. We'll just have to redraw this completely. So this is a huge thing. And we're going to make this some white noise. And we're going to turn this derez on. And then we're going to play it. So your sound effect can have more than one part to it. So I've linked in 2 parts, and then you can go back and you can see the timing. The one thing I haven't added here, this is the length. It always, the pattern stays the same. It just goes longer. There will be an extend option so that you can keep the sound at the current length it is, and then it will extend everything and rescale everything, but I haven't done that. And you can export the WAV file to another thing. You can change the mix type, so you can allow clipping. So if the 2 sounds get too loud, they'll get clipped, or otherwise they can normalize it, and then they'll never get clipped because they'll just get readjusted, and then you can set the sample rate and the resolution. And I think that, and you can change the color of each thing, so you can. I don't know. I don't know what that was. Oh, yes, I do. Anyway, so if you didn't hear that, don't worry. But anyway, so that's just to help you visualize things, is that different tracks can have different sounds, different colors. So that's that feature. And then you've got layout markers, so we can create a layout marker, and we'll click on that. And I think we have to click on. Oh, I see how it works. All right, so here are the default layout. You'll have a layout marker now, and it will sit there. And we can change the variable name to M1 because I can't be bothered typing. Right there, and then it has a particular position. The color just simply is for your reference. And then we can go to here, and then we can go X, Y, M1.X, M1.Y. Oh, that's right. You have to go marks.m1. Yeah, it's going to make you type a lot. You're going to have to get good at typing. Okay. And then after that, they go to where the marker is, and then I can adjust the marker to another position, and then when I run it, they go over to there. So layout markers are just a tool to organize how you lay out things. Yeah, there you go. It's pretty easy. Right, now we have scenes. So down here we've got scenes. So scenes are like a novel feature. Also, when you compile things and they successfully compile, there will be this reference tab will come up here. You can click on things. So this is all the flag blocks. This is all the clicked blocks, and you can click on it and it will take you to the thing. If you click on cat, it will tell you where it was defined, where there are a broadcast, where there is an event block, so that's in the stage. And down here you've got the click on the stage. These are the variables of the stage. That's where it's declared. These are the places that it's used. Down here, sprites, and some of those usages for like stage variables will be within other objects, because other sprites can see stage variables like in Scratch. And again, you've got all of those features. If you want to search, if you go Control-Shift-F, you can find everywhere within a project. I was supposed to fix the layout of this, but hey, so you can go, and you can find cat all the time as you use cat. So there's a few features in the editor. Also, before I do anything else, if you go Control // whichever one, you can comment out code. So commenting works like in Java. You can go like that, or C, moo, or you can go double. So that's a one-line comment. And again, you can comment things out. And if you go tab, if you highlight things and then you go tab, you can move things along, and you can shift tab. And that's most of the features of the editor. You can go to a particular line. I'm going to go to line 2. Click on go line. Not a very useful interface. And you can find within a document. But if you highlight some text, so if I highlight cat and then I go Control K, it will go to the next cat. So that's the extent of the current tools. But anyway, back to scenes. Make a new scene. We're going to have to choose from here. By default, it doesn't have the built-in library of stuff. That's just life. So we'll go here. This is my scene 0. We're going to give it a better name. Start. And yeah, we'll just call it scene 0. And then we can choose the background. And then we can add our sprites in. So we can add our sprite there. But we can add a sprite multiple times. And we can add another sprite here. And so now we've got 3 sprites. And how do we use this? Well, we can click on here. we can broadcast cat, and we can wait, and then we can go scene 0. So this doesn't have it going scenes. I've decided for scene, you don't have to say go scene.scene 0. You just have to say go scene 0. Go to, that's right. I changed it from go to go to because go was a keyword in the language Go, and I'm trying to avoid using keywords that are used in other languages. Go to, of course, is used in many other languages, it has been, but everybody hates that command, so I'm changing it to something slightly different. So now if you go to, and then if I click on them, we go to the scene, and yay, everything's laid out the way that you asked. And you can also, on the cat, so we can go start, scene 0, repeat, 10, turn left, 10, like that. All right, and so then we click, and then I'm going to jump there, and then we're going to click on them again, and they turn around like this. Whee, and they always turn around every time you click on it, they go back to the start scene, and then they do that. But it gets even wackier. So up here we have these action scripts. How long have I been recording for? Just got to check. 46 minutes. Okay, so we have the action editor. So actions are the first start of, like, I want this to be a tool that you can use to create basically game engines for other people to use, or other, like, no code editors for other people. So, like, I'm kind of thinking of construct 2 and 3 here, but you'll see what I mean. So we'll define an action. We'll call the action, we'll just do spin. Spin, and then we'll go int times, and we'll just, all right, we'll see what that comes up with. It doesn't always come up with a nice looking label. The way the GUI works in this is not very good, and it's going to get better. Repeat 10, right, times. So this is a proof of concept. This is not how it will work in the end. So in the end, you'll have libraries, and you'll be able to do like lots of neat little features by having like to predefine objects and behaviors for objects and actions for objects, but we'll do the actions for now. So repeat 36 times, turn left 10. Boolean is left. F is left. So booleans exist. Else. Slightly inefficient way of doing that, but that's okay. Okay, so now we have to compile that. If we click on compile, I'll tell you there are no errors. That's fine. So the action and behavior stuff is going to be one of the next things to get an overhaul, because it's well due for it. But now we have defined an action. If we click back into our scene and we have our 3 cats, then we're going to have to get rid of that code that does everything. So we will comment that out, and we will go down here, and then we will choose actions. So we click on actions for this object, and we can go add an event. So we go when the scene starts, or when we're clicked. So we're going to go with clicked. Why it's still got the interesting. Then we can update. So when it's clicked, you can actually click both. So you can have that, and you can add an action. There's only one action, and it says very cryptically. Let's fix that up. Okay. Again, it's possible to get it. So spin. Okay. And I've forgotten the compile thing. Wait, up here. Compile actions, control F12. All right. And then we go back down to my scene list. So where's the cat that I was looking at? This cat. Okay, you can give them a better name too. Basics. Weird cat. So, beep. So weird cat. Actions, add action. Spin times is left. Again, you can change these things. All right, so here's the terribly poorly laid out thing. We're gonna spin one time, and we're gonna go left. And this one, we're gonna add event on clicked, update, and then we're gonna click this. We're gonna add this action, and we're gonna spin 2 times, and we're gonna go true. So it is left. So later on, like, this is terrible. Like, honestly, I should be ashamed of all of these things. But in the future, this will be a much nicer interface. It's all proof of concept thing. So you could add other actions if you've defined more actions, and you can add more events. But actions are done one after each other. So if you have if you click, if it's when it's clicked, you do this action, and this action is like an infinite forever loop. You'll never do any other action after that, and it doesn't detect that, so it won't say anything. But you could do multiple actions. And so the idea is, of course, is that you are going to write lots of code. Someone will write that, and then it will create lots of little actions and behaviors and things that you can add in, and then you can change those, and a much nicer looking interface that maybe you can drag and drop one day and do cool things. But anyway, let's see what happens when we run in compiler. And then now we'll move here, and we have to click on this guy, and we go here. So if I click on this one, nothing happens. That's nice. Why didn't it work? New style thread being created. What? Did I forget to turn this option? Oh, here we go. Don't have that thing on, whatever you do. Alright. And no, that's not it. Why doesn't it work? Okay, it does work. We have to work out why it doesn't work. When clicked on scene start. Oh, you know why? You know why? You know why? Okay, the reason is that every time I click on it, it restarts the scene, because that's how I'm restarting the scene. So we're debugging things here. So we're not going to do this. When we click, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go to the scene. We're just going to start in that scene. Whoops. Okay. Move. Sorry, I did Control S. One thing that's not missing that will be in the next version is automatic saving, backup saving, and backup files of things. At the moment, you have to go Control S, and one day there will be a setup where you have a workspace and you don't have a project that you save. It's just a sort of big workspace that as you edit, it changes it, so you don't have to save anything. The previous project before this that I worked on, which was meant to be a pick-a-path story making tool, did do that, and I decided to stick with doing, but it's all being written internally as though it should be in a more advanced project on a workspace sort of. I can't explain it right now, but trust me, it will work better later on as an option. And that I have actually thought about this from the very beginning. But anyway, we can click on my project, or my prefs, and there's a start scene option. So the default layout, if we click on start, then when we run it, it goes straight into there, and it jumped over there. So this is so that one there in the corner is the only original sprite. These are actually clones, I think. So if I click on that one, they turn that way. And then if I click on this one, they spin that way. Because that's their actions. So that all works. And they're all printing out cat because they're all cats. Pardon me. So I think I've got all those options. There are preferences. Might as well go over some of these preferences. So this is where if you download Scratch 2 and you install it, there'll be a folder somewhere called Media that contains all the media stuff. You have to browse and link it up in here in order for those library functions to show up. There will be proper library support at another point. This is just for importing code. So if you have random bits of code that aren't attached to event blocks and you want to actually see them, you click on that thing. This is for like a very complicated discussion later on. So it's when it compiles, it's actually running code. It's actually there's two levels of code running. There's the actual app environment code running, and then there's the actual generating. So the generating the application process is an actual program running as well. And to explain how everything works is like a slightly more in-depth discussion. And the flag is if you want it automatically to click the flag by start. Default, which is these are the things you're almost certainly always going to have clicked on. There's a dark mode, doesn't work very well. Some point I will redesign everything to be dark mode first focused, but we'll come back to that. When you download it initially, the terms and conditions will show up on the startup. If you don't want that, unclick that thing. If you want to change the font on the editor, like I have, this is the place that you do it. Don't worry about this thing because this used to be there. This is when you draw a little polygon, and this feature will come back as being useful at some other later point. We're going to get to those things in a minute. Don't worry about these. Don't use the experimental IR engine yet. That will actually be finished soon. I will explain about that later on. That's really weird. I don't know why I've still got these features. These are now moved to the project. And there's a whole bunch of default folders that you can choose for where you import and export and create things. So that's how scenes work. That's how everything else works. Now I got to go on to another feature. So you may see here it says C64. There's also a backpack, but the backpack only works for commands at the moment and it's not that useful. We'll get there. It will work. Also, errors show up here, and then you can go through and you can click on the errors. The command doesn't do anything. Don't worry. It used to. It's one of those things that used to work, but doesn't. But it will come back. And there's lots of weird reasons why I wanted this. It's basically was meant to be like an address bar, like in a browser. But it was meant to allow kids to try and find ways to hack things, like to make the smarter kids feel like they're doing something cool. You can hack things, and there's an about menu and there's a few other things. But now we've got a few other options, so we can create a new C64 project. Save current first. It doesn't actually get rid of the project. This is an ongoing. It's not even supposed to do that. No wonder I've gone and got everything a bit confused. There's still a few quirks. So it says, do you want to get rid of the previous project? And then promptly does nothing about it. Anyway, we've got down here my C64 project. So what's a C64 project? So the Commodore 64 is a vintage computer from the 1980s. Well liked by many people. And so I want this project to go beyond just creating like web apps and Scratch things. So you can export out to Scratch too. That's an important thing. And then but if you export out Scratch 2 with non-Scratch setup for the window size and all that, it won't work. I was thinking of doing whatever Turbo Warp does to get how it does that, but it turns out Turbo Warp puts a comment in the project to specify these things, and I'm like, well, because I don't do Scratch 3 output, I'm not too sure I'm going to do that anytime soon. But just to be aware, so there are some features that don't work with Scratch, but the scene stuff and a few other features that are not part of Scratch do in fact compile to Scratch, because it just creates a lot of back-end code to support it. Anyway, but I want to go beyond that, and the two things I want to go beyond to is, like, I want also you'll have an output. I want to have more target exporting outputs. The next thing I will work on is a C-based SDL target, which will target many different platforms, but is slightly more complicated to use, and will create super fast code. So I'm pretty sure I can create code that will run faster than Turbo Warp, for example, because I'm not bothering to do all the complicated image stuff for one thing. At the moment, it outputs weird HTML code, and I can do much better. And the reason I have to change everything, of course, is that I want to start importing language features that you can't do in Scratch. And one of those, of course, is local variables. So you can go x local equals 2, and then we can wait local time, and then we can go. This will actually work fine. To prove it, it works fine. But and in fact, you can do quite a lot. You can go while local time is less than 5. That might actually still work. Does it work? It does work. Now you have to wait 5 seconds. There we go. But you can't do like local time. If I go like this, local time, it will say requires root level context. Not a useful error, which doesn't actually show up. Nice. Why does that not show up? Okay, there's a few errors to fix here. I should have written these down. I'm going to write that one down actually. Error like area error not show up. There's other errors showed up. I don't know why that one doesn't. Not show up. Yeah, but it will, like, I want to move on to having proper support for local variables, not the weird thing. It's not actually doing like a hack. This is not a hack. It's just not doing what you think it's doing. It's doing something slightly more advanced. But I want to have local variables. Once you have local variables, the actions become way more cool. And also to have functions, so proper functions. Function. Maybe we'll do it the new style move, and we'll go int. But we probably won't. We'll probably do both. We'll probably have int moo. And so those will return. We can return values, and so to make a block, you go like this. You go block cow. All right, that's how you define a block. If you want a turbo block, you currently go like this, or you go with the star. This is probably the preferred way of writing it. Cow 42. That one requires root level context. So get rid of that. What did I do? What have I done? I've broken it. That does not require root level context. What are you talking about? Requires root level. Line 12. Okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. What has gone wrong? Huh. Why would that change it? Intriguing. Oh, no. Because it's doing a block. I don't actually know why that actually happens. But anyway, yeah, as I said, yeah. it all makes sense somehow. That's how you do blocks. But I want to have proper functions is another thing I was going to say. But anyway, we've got to finish this off. So we're going to talk about... so what I was saying is that, yeah, we have the basic sort of... You can make some apps and you can hopefully make decent, sort of really fast C apps, C programs in SDR, which can run many different things. And hopefully I'll target Android apps at some point because I can just retrofit the standard internal running thing to work on Android. I don't know about iOS anytime soon. I was planning to do it to target as I want to target as minimal number of things as possible, but a language called Hex or Hexer has, like, you can use that as an intermediate language to be able to compile to many different tools. But I think I'll just go with SDL for now. But I also want to target completely different architectures and different things like that. So one of them is vintage computers. I'm the most familiar with the Commodore 64, but also I grew up programming Commodore Amigas and things like that, so that will probably turn up at some point. But there is the proof of concept of Commodore 64 stuff. So I can go print. You have to do it in capital letters. Hello world, as you will see. Then I can compile it, and voila, it's a Commodore 64, and it's built in, and it says hello world, and all the codes are there. With this weird stuff here. So the Commodore 64 stuff, it supports blocks. It supports going repeat 10. It doesn't support sprites yet or anything like that. Pardon me. Which is ironic, because I think if there's any computer that popularized the use of the word sprites, it is the Commodore 64. It was not the originator of the word sprites, but people on the Commodore 64 world made a big thing of it. Poop. 5, 3, 2, 8. Ooh. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so let's see what happens when we do that. I made a mistake, and the error doesn't show up, but an error showed up. Why did this error not show up? Line 3. Oh, you have to give blocks. You can't just write code like that. All right, anyway. That was way too fast. Why did it not yield? That is interesting code. That no longer works the way that I thought it did. It's been a while. Why does this not work? What? Why does yield no longer work? Seed? Huh. Well, it used to all work. So the multitasking and all that works. Like in my previous demonstration, I actually got this all to work. I don't know what command I used. Forever. Not a good idea. We don't actually need that. So all the multitasking and everything is there. So it's basically like preemptive multitasking. Well, it's not preemptive, like cooperative multitasking in an 8-bit computer. So you can do messages, you can do broadcasting. So all the basic code is there. There's only like a very few number of commands that work. Print works, poke works, peek works. That's for changing memory locations. And I think you can go joy up. So if joy up. It's not going to be a good place to do it there. Is it joy up? Print move. This just gets translated to the cursor keys. But we will go through one last thing. Click on it. Move, move, move. So I'm clicking. It's using a lot of... that's not my code doing it. It's just that the printing command takes a lot of code, a lot of processor time to run. So you can kind of see this is how fast it's task process switching. So it's reasonably efficient. So you should be able to make some pretty good stuff in it. So I will be working on this soon. Like this is, I have to come back to this. But I also wanted to, and it's not actually there, there's MPU projects. Those are for microcontrollers. So I want to target old school Arduino Uno, so Uno R3, the new ones, the Uno R4 and the Picos and the BBC Microbit, and also I'd quite like to do PIC 16. So I've actually written like most of the AVR compiling code, and I've done the PIC 16 assembler code stuff and the emulating environment. So there, I got quite far on that, but I've been working on getting everything else ready to release. The back-end framework that actually handles the compiling to a machine code is quite interesting. So this uses a custom assembler that's designed specifically for code generating assembler stuff. So not for I'm going to write my code generator. So it's a completely interesting project in itself, which will be released as a secondary project at some point. So I mentioned that. So how is this going to go forward in the future? Well, obviously there's so many areas for things to add. So the image editor, there's an infinite number of things to continue adding on this. The code, there's an infinite number of basic language features to add in. So this is basically just Scratch with a few extra things and weird little features like you can write code that is not inside oh, there it is. It doesn't even say stage. It says move. Not even inside an event block, and I have to explain that another time. And yeah, so more language features. A much better editor is like an important thing to. I have to have a drink of water. A lot of editor, just general usage things. So one thing I really, really want is camera movement. So obviously at the moment, so camera movement and a tile editor. So I'm going to implement camera settings soon. So what that will be is there'll be a global camera. So you can go camera X equals blah, 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 blah. Or you can, who knows what the command it will be. It's like move camera, go. All right. And then you can do it like a 1,000. And so the idea will be is in your default layout, this black little box here is the window on the world. But the actual world will be much, much bigger, and you'll be able to adjust the camera so you can scroll around in the world. And there'll be support for tile map objects, so like Construct 2 kind of thing. And there'll also be primitive 3D, so you'll be able to set the X and Y position, but also a Z position, which will refer to how close you are to the object. And that probably won't be translated into Scratch. Like I can't go too far with the Scratch exports. Like originally I had intended, the idea is that this project, you could learn newer, more advanced programming language features, but you could compile it and export it out to Scratch, so you could continue to use the Scratch ecosystem to share your project. But of course, that's breaking the terms and conditions of the Scratch. Yeah, that's not an actual command. But if it was an actual command, that would be sweet. It will be at some point. Yeah, just going, yeah. Let me just do it. You can't actually, if you do that, there's a big lot of information here about don't do this because the Scratch website doesn't permit you uploading. You can load things, I think, into the Scratch website if you're not logged in to see that it works, because it's not uploading it onto their website as such. It's just uploading it into your browser. But if you're logged in, it's going to save it on their servers, and then they might get angry. So please don't, like, I'm not going to take any responsibility. But of course, you could use it to export, to load into other Scratch adjacent tools like Penguin Mod or Turbo Warp and things like that. At some point, you'll be able to export out to Snap, because I don't think Snap gets enough love, and like some other Snap other projects. So obviously we've got like that. We've got more advanced tile maps. I want to have a sprite sheet extractor tool, so you can load in your sprite sheet and you can take out sprites and build in things. The way that you handle costumes is going to change. So you don't have costumes attached to your object anymore. You might notice that the sounds are not attached to any sprites. So that was a silly thing in Scratch, I thought. So all sounds are separate from sprites, and so later on there will be animations. Animations are just short like sets of frames, and then you can use those as independent objects that you can drag and drop around for other things. So you might have you might be able to create an object that has like different animations for moving left and right, and just drag those in. But the whole idea is that to shift it away from all your things being in one big blob of all your frames of images for that particular sprite being in one big blob in one place, that they will be spread out into animations for individual things, and then there'll be an animation extractor. So if you have your sprite sheet and you want to turn those into an animation, you can go through and highlight which frames you want and how far apart they are and all that kind of stuff, and it will turn them into an animation. Obviously, I said the editor needs vast improvements. That's a fair bit of work. The underlying code needs a fair bit of work. Lots of cool features to add. Lots of targets for things to finish my initial microprocessor example. To show, sorry, I've just been talking for too long. To show what I'm talking about, because I think it'd be really, really cool, and you'll be able to actually create your hardware designs to a degree inside. So it will be targeting people who want to make like little projects with LEDs and motors and buttons and things. Like maybe you're making an old school little video game. I like making them like you have little LEDs and buttons, and you build up that with a microcontroller. You'll be able to test and do everything within this tool, even though it's not going to do any electronics simulation or anything like that. But you'll see what I mean when I've got around to adding more onto that. Like there is a ton of other things that I'm forgetting. Obviously there's lots and lots of user interface things that need to go in there. It's just a never-ending stream. Like also being able to edit samples, to do effects on samples. There's lots of things for the synth editor. Add new ones. Have a more advanced one where you have like drag and drop, where you create like a graph of things, and you have like a waveform going into something else, and that feeds something else for more advanced synth effects that you can also use for sample manipulation. Much better colliders to have the sprite, to have tile maps with better collision things, to have some simplified physics engine. That's not going to be complicated. You're not going to get Angry Birds out of this, I don't think, but hopefully at some point there'll be some sort of way of doing extensions for third parties. So I want to move a lot of these things to being other people doing the work, but like it's not going to be open sourced anytime soon. It will be slowly open sourced as I go through and modularize certain things. So eventually you will be able to, the first thing to be open source, well, the GUI will be the last thing to be open source. The actual code that does the compiling and converting between things will be one of the first things. I'm not too fussed about that. I don't want to work with anybody else on this. It's my little baby, but I do want to set it up so that other people can come in and add things, or they can take the code and then they can create their own versions of that. So maybe, you have your costume editor. There's a default one that I wrote, and then you can have a plugin framework so that people can take that one and adjust it, or they can create their own ones, but I will stick with my default one and you can do your own thing. Yeah, so I don't know, there's millions of different things. The scene framework can be extended boundlessly. There's so many extra things that need to be changed and added in, and new features. The Commodore 64 stuff, obviously you need a sprite editor, you need background editors, and there's all these weird quirks because vintage computers can't display infinite numbers of colors, or millions of colors. and they have weird resolutions, and you have to do all these weird little things with it. So there's quite a lot of fun to have there. But yeah, and I can't do that because I've out of money. And so people, if anyone wants me to continue with this, then I need somebody to at least give me a small amount of money. I don't need that much money, but I cannot continue unless there's actually some support for this project. Like I will continue to put little bits in there, but I'm going to have to move on in my life to other things. Otherwise, I will run out of money and starve. But yeah, that's the one thing I have to say. So yeah, if you like this idea and you want to try it out, you can download it with the link in the description. Hopefully, if there's any of the bugs that were in here that weren't just me being silly, I would have fixed them. But you know, this has been a much better video than the first one where there were tons of bugs. They were everywhere. So the main one here is that it doesn't show the errors properly. There are stage actions. I don't even know they work, so I haven't tried them. So don't click on the stage actions because I don't think they work. And there'll be more and more. So the one thing, the data thing, the data doesn't work. That's right. So I don't know why that's the case. Bounce sprite handler. Well, that will be why. Okay. So I'm just looking at the output, and I think it's just told me why this doesn't work. But the idea is, you have these are little variables. If that was here like it used to be, they're variables that you can drag and drop around like this kind of thing. And the idea would be is that they're things you drag and drop into your actions. So your action might take a variable as an input, or it might take a sprite as an input, or it might take a sound as an input. So those are things you're dragging and dropping into there. And you can then do some neat things. And also there should be messages should also be able to be defined graphically. But they can't be. So anyway, thanks for watching. This is way too long. Or what is it? 1 minute 21. 1 hour and 21. That's fine. That's fine. All right, cool. Thanks for watching, and like, share, subscribe, and please think about like signing up to Patreon or using that coffee thing, and donating if you think this is a cool project and worth me continuing with. Cool. Thanks. Bye.